Okay, let's talk urban legends. You know those stories? They're just so sticky, aren't they? Often kind of bizarre, sometimes genuinely creepy.
Oh, yeah. They just pop up. Whispers, emails now, social
Yeah.
media, everywhere.
And they always feel just plausible enough, that little seed of doubt, like, wait, could that actually be real?
hmm They really hook into our collective anxieties, I think, fears of the unknown, fascination with the weird, and they change over time, but that core unbelievability, it stays.
Absolutely. And we've got some great sources here today, articles, some research, and this really interesting blog post you shared.
Right, stuff that really digs into these stories.
Yeah, puts them under the microscope, not just asking true or false, but why do we even tell these things?
Exactly. So the mission for this deep dive, using the material you brought, is sort of sift through the myths
Right. Take apart a few really persistent
and
ones,
see what's actually behind them, the truth behind the folklore fog.
but also what they tell us about ourselves, maybe.
That's a key part, yeah.
So we're looking at stories about, well, health scares, hidden dangers, maybe even pet care gone wrong.
It's a whole range. What the source is called modern mythology. It's fascinating.
Okay, let's unpack it. What's really striking looking at this material, it's not just that the stories are, well, false,
No, it's how they spread and why they stick with people.
even when you can disprove them pretty easily sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the facts, often.
All right, so let's start with a bunch of legends that seem to play on that fear of hidden danger. You know, when we're just out and about.
Yeah, the sources definitely spent time on those. Public health scares, hidden threats, that kind of thing.
Like the Tainted Needle story, that one feels like a classic of the genre.
Oh, definitely. Especially big back in the payphone era.
Right. Needles supposedly infected with HIV or something, left in coin returns.
That's the one. Usually came with this dire warning, don't even check for change. It's not worth it.
Which is terrifying. And it often seemed to point fingers, didn't it, at like marginalized groups.
It did. Drug users were often implicitly blamed. It plugged right into all the fear around the AIDS epidemic back then.
So you'd think if this was really happening, health authorities would be all over it.
You would.
What did the sources say? Any official report?
Well, this is where it falls apart. The research is really clear. Big bodies, like the CDC in the U.S.,
Yeah.
they've explicitly said zero credible reports, no evidence. They were never even asked to test needles from this scenario because, well, there were no actual incidents reported.
Wow. So huge fear, fueled by anxieties of the time, but absolutely no factual basis, according to the people who would know.
Right. It seems like the story was the contagious thing, not any, pathogen.
That's a really key point the sources make, isn't it?
It is. The legend just tapped into fears that were already there. Fear of public spaces, disease, outsiders.
It's super potent, facts or no facts.
Exactly.
And you see kind of similar themes with the vanishing organs story, right? Another one about being vulnerable, maybe in unfamiliar places.
Oh, absolutely. That's a particularly chilling one.
Tell us about it.
Usually involves someone, often a tourist or a business traveler, waking up super groggy
Okay.
in a hotel bathtub filled with ice.
Oh, God.
And they find out, maybe there's a note, maybe just a scar, they've had an organ taken, usually a kidney.
Yeah.
By some criminal ring.
Pure nightmare fuel. That one felt massive for a while, especially when email got big.
It really did. The sources flagged 1997 as a huge year for it, spreading via email.
I remember those emails.
It got so widespread, caused so much panic, the police departments, even actual organ donor groups had to put out official statements debunking it.
Wow. That level of response tells you how much grip it had.
It's pretty remarkable for a completely fictional story.
So what were the specific reasons it just couldn't happen, according to the research? Apart from nobody finding any victims.
Well, there's the sheer medical impossibility. We were doing that in a hotel bathtub.
Yeah.
Organ removal needs sterile conditions, specialized gear, trained surgeons, post-op care, all that.
Not really a bathtub and ice scenario.
Not even close.
Yeah.
It's just playing on that fear of being helpless, exploited, far from home.
So again, leverages fear, crime, travel, losing control of your own body, and the story just outruns any reality.
It's amazing how they find those little cracks in our sense of safety.
And the material we looked at connects this to how urban legends often work, like modern cautionary tales.
Exactly. Warning us about dangers we perceive, even if the specific threat itself is made up.
Right. Okay, speaking of perceived dangers, let's shift gears a bit.
Yeah.
Less global conspiracy, more local horror. Sewer gators.
A classic. Love that one.
So the story is people buy baby alligators, right?
Mm.
Pets.
Uh-huh. Then they get too big or inconvenient.
And down the toilet they go.
And somehow, supposedly, they survive down there, thrive even, grow huge in the sewers under big cities like New York.
The image is just undeniably potent. A giant reptile under the street.
Totally. But what's the reality, according to the experts in our sources, for an alligator in, say, the New York City sewer system?
Yeah, what did they say?
Pretty much impossible. The conditions are just wrong.
How so?
Well, for one, New York winters. Way too cold for a cold-blooded reptile like an alligator to survive long-term.
Ah, right.
And the sewer environment itself, it's toxic, lacks the right food, the right space, basically everything an alligator needs. A population couldn't establish itself.
So maybe a single gator ends up down there briefly sometimes, like a lost pet.
That has happened, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They usually get retrieved quickly or, sadly, die. But the idea of a whole colony living and breeding down there,
Pure fantasy.
pure fantasy. The research suggests it taps into our unease about, like, the hidden city beneath us, urban infrastructure.
And maybe a little bit of anxiety about irresponsible pet owners.
Probably that, too. Like nature getting its revenge, maybe.
The wild reclaiming the city, one sewer pipe at a time. Okay, from down there to something more domestic, but still horrifying. The microwaved poodle.
Ah, yes. The poodle frizz legend. Grim stuff.
So the tale goes, usually an older woman, right? Watches her old dog.
Mm-hmm. Wants to dry quickly.
Puts it in the microwave, thinking it's like a quick dryer. And tragedy.
Yeah. The dog dies from the radiation. It sounds almost ridiculous, but it's stuck around.
So, did the sources find any proof this ever actually happened like that, as an accident?
The core legend, where it's this naive mistake, entirely folklore, no credible reports, no evidence of it happening that way.
Okay.
Now, the sources do mention, disturbingly, some isolated, awful cases where people intentionally harmed animals using microwaves. Horrific acts leading to criminal charges.
Right, but that's different. That's deliberate cruelty, not the oops story.
Exactly. The widespread, tragic accident version, not backed by facts.
So it functions more like a cautionary tale about maybe misusing new technology, even if the specific story is made up.
Feels like it. Like some legends are tied to specific moments, fears about something new coming into our lives.
That's a good point the blog source made, actually.
Yeah, that sometimes these stories are reactions to cultural shifts or new tech, expressing our anxieties about them.
Like Pop Rocks and Cola back in the 70s.
Precisely. That's a perfect example. Pop Rocks candy comes out. It's got this weird, cool poppin' thing going on.
Yeah, I remember that.
And boom, legend starts. Mix it with soda, especially cola.
Your stomach explodes, or something like that.
Yeah, dangerous, maybe even fatal stomach explosion. It felt just plausible enough because the candy was fizzy and weird.
I totally bought that as a kid.
Me too. The manufacturer actually went to a lot of trouble tests, ad campaigns, to prove it was harmless.
Did it work?
Well, as the sources point out, urban legends are tough. They're really resilient. The truth, it doesn't always kill a good, scary story,
Legends are definitely stubborn. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit here. Health scares, crime fears, sewer creatures, domestic accidents.
Quite a range.
And what really comes through from these sources is these stories often just crumble when you apply some basic science or just look for actual evidence.
That's right. Whether it's, scientific impossibility like the organ theft or the gators.
Or just a total lack of official reports, like the needles from places like the CDC.
Or just their clear status as folklore. Stories changing over time. They rarely hold up when you actually scrutinize them.
Which is exactly what the material you shared helped us do here.
Yeah.
And understanding these myths, using these insights, it's not just about saying, gotcha, that's false, is it?
No, not at all. It's more about critical thinking, maybe.
Yeah, exercising that muscle. Learning to tell fact from fiction, especially now, with information overload everywhere.
And appreciating how these stories work, how they evolve, what they reveal about our collective fears, our anxieties, maybe even our hopes sometimes.
The blog source we looked at put that really well, I thought. It aimed to explore the origins, the misconceptions, and then the actual facts.
And I think this deep dive, looking through your material, really did that for some of these really striking examples.
Definitely. And that same blog source, it ended with this thought that kind of stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
That sometimes reality is actually stranger than fiction.
Interesting.
So we've just spent all this time looking at these incredibly wild, strange stories that turn out to be false.
Right. All debunked. based on the evidence.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? A question maybe for you, the listener, to think about.
Building on what we've discussed,
If these fantastic, unbelievable tales aren't real, what does that suggest about the truly surprising or strange or extraordinary things that are happening?
things that might be hiding in plain sight, maybe? Simply because they don't fit that dramatic urban legend mold.
Yeah. Something to maybe mull over next time you get forwarded a story that feels just a little too wild to be true.